My name is Commissioner Frank Avila, and I'm a commissioner at the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago. And I have with me Joan Levin. She's the legislative director of the Illinois Right to Know GMO. Thanks for being on the show, Joan.
Thank you, Frank. I'm glad to be here today. May I say a few words about your background?
Sure.
Which is very exciting. Frank Avila was born and raised in Chicago, and he's an environmentalist, professional civil engineer, and professional land surveyor. He was elected to the Board of Commissioners of the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District in 2002 and re-elected on November 4, 2008. Commissioner Avila's top priorities include environmental protection, regulating waste disposal into our waterways, compounds of emerging concerns of contaminated sediments, and wastewater treatment, including biosolids issues and flood prevention. Commissioner Frank Avila received his Bachelor of Science degree in engineering from the University of Illinois in Champaign-Urbana in 1961. He also received the degree of Master of Science in Finance from the University of Arizona in Tucson in 1968, and has continued his education on many environmental issues. As a member of the board of the MWR-DGC, Commissioner Avila serves as the chair of the Engineering Committee, the Maintenance and Operations Committee, and the Health and Welfare Committee. While at the district, Commissioner Avila has helped to establish a district-wide energy policy, a biosolids policy, a nutrient removal demonstration and research project, and a contaminated sediment remediation project. Commissioner Avila also frequently speaks about the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago to a number of community groups, business organizations, schools of all levels, and public agencies. Commissioner Avila and his wife Sherry have produced TV shows at CAN TV for 12 years. Commissioner Avila is a member of the Water Environmental Federation and serves on the advisory board of the Institute for Environmental Science and Policy, IESP, at the University of Illinois, Chicago. Commissioner Avila and his wife Sherry, have been married since 1965 and have 3 children, Frank, Quinn, and Audrey. Mr. Avila, this is an impressive resume, especially your work with waterways, with compounds of emerging concerns and contaminated sediments. This is such a rich biography, and I'm really interested in drilling it down to some practical ways that those of us who are not engineers and we are not finance geniuses can understand it a little better.
Yeah, and that's why with my background, I always liked politics. And I own an engineering company, over 30 years. And I've been practicing engineering over 45 years. And I always liked politics. And I always wanted to run for an office that when I get elected, I would know what to do in that office. And also, I wanted to run for an office that will protect the health and welfare of the residents of Cook County.
Well, the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District seems totally made for you. What I would like to know is if you could explain a little bit more. Now, is this the same as what we used to call the Chicago Sanitary District?
Yes, it used to be called the Metropolitan Sanitary District of Greater Chicago.
Of Greater Chicago.
And then they changed the name to Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago.
And they added the word reclamation. Now, are you involved with the water when I flush the toilet, or when I take a shower, or when I'm washing my dishes in the sink, or doing my laundry? Do all of those things come to your district?
Oh yes, a person, because of our name, Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago, Metropolitan, they think we're the drinking water, the water filtration plant out at Navy Pier, and we're not. That's the top end. We deal with the sanitary. We all get up in the morning, we take a bath, we use soap, we use shampoo, we brush our teeth, we use toothpaste, we use cosmetics, anything that we use during the day from when we get up to when we go to sleep at night comes into our plants. and they want us to remove all the toxic chemicals that they give us at our plant, remove everything, so we can send it out into the environment. And when I got elected, I was thinking, boy, that's the wrong way to look at it. I said, why are we spending all this money at the back end to remove everything that the public gives us? When we get it, it's already in the environment. So I said, that's why I ran and got elected as the commissioner of the Water Reclamation District, because I was concerned about our kids being born. You know, our kids are being born with adult diseases now. When a baby is born, even before he is born, they have toxic chemicals in the umbilical cord.
Well, where do you take the chemicals and the toxins when you remove them? Where do you put them?
Well, you know, that's a good question. Just like our body, our digestive system in our body, we have the good bugs and the bad bugs. Well, at our wastewater plant, when a person eats and drinks and he eliminates their waste, and you know, they say waste, and when I go talk to kids, first graders, second graders, I do not say human waste. I say poop and pee.
The kids must love that.
Yeah, well, and they understand it. So when a person poops and pee, and he flushes the toilet, or when he washes his hands with the soap, or when they use personal care products, they take a bath. It comes down into our drain. They wash the dishes, wash the clothes. It comes into it goes first into it goes from their home into there's a little lateral, we call it, from their home to the local sewer. From their local, and the municipalities, each municipality owns their own local sewers. Like the city of Chicago has their own sewers. Wilmette, Skokie has their own sewers. And then from their sewers, it comes into our larger sewers that we own, which is the interceptor sewers. And we have 540 miles of it. And then from our interceptor sewers, it goes into our plants. We have 7 plants here in Cook County. 3 are the largest in North America.
Wow.
Large. And 1 is the largest in the world. We have people from all over the world see how we take care of the water environment. So when it comes into our plant, when it first comes into our plant, we have a screen with openings of 2 inches, which will catch all the large rubbish that comes in. And then the floatables, we call it the floatables that come through the streams. The floatables are your poop. Naturally, the liquid will come through. And then from there, it goes through a different types of process. But the process that it goes through is that we have the good bugs and the bad bugs, the microorganism. So we have the good microorganism eating the bad microorganism. And that's how we treat the wastewater.
Can those microorganisms also eat the kinds of toxins that might be chemicals in our food or in our body, our personal care products?
Well, no, they cannot. They can't eat all of it.
So where do those go?
Well, they'll go out into the environment.
Those go back into the environment. So
Yeah,
it'd be really better if we sent less of that stuff out into the environment, because eventually it's going to be coming back to us.
Sure. You know, like I've been, for the last, I say 8 years or 9 years, I've been talking about the triclosan. You ever heard of triclosan?
Yes, I've heard the word. Can you tell me a little more about it?
Triclosan is an ingredient that they put in antibacterial soap.
Uh-huh.
And when you combine it with maybe chlorinated water, it could become carcinogen.
Really?
Yes. And so I would recommend for the people out there that are watching this show, just buy ordinary soap, because the first line of defense of health is washing your hands.
Well, should I be looking for labels on my soap?
Oh yes, a label. I'm glad you're talking about labels. Labels is that if you buy antibacterial soap and it has, like, I'll have the ingredients there and I have triclosan, I will not buy it.
What about, is there triclosan in laundry soap or in dishwashing soap?
Well, you'll find triclosan.
Toothpaste?
Toothpaste, yes. You'll find triclosan in toothpaste too. And I would avoid that, because the effect that it has more so on the kids, because their body is just developing.
Sure.
And so now, the problem with our government is that they'll want to study it for 10 or 15 years, but everyone in the industry knows that that ingredient is not good for our health.
Well, I've read about antibiotic-resistant bacteria.
Yes.
Are those the same kind of bacteria that might breed if you use triclosan too often?
Sure. You'll buy an antibacterial soap that says it'll eliminate 99%. You ever seen the
1%
bottle?
is the strong guys.
The 1% is the strong guy. Then when you use that antibacterial soap and eliminates 99%, that 1% becomes 100%. Then they have to make another formula to kill the 99% of that 1%. But then there's always going to be 1% left, so it's an ongoing thing.
Whatever happened to hexachlorophene? That used to be the ingredient used in Dial's soap and things like that. Is it triclosan now?
Oh yes, triclosan. And there's an awful lot of ingredients in our personal care products that one should not use. And they want us to remove it at the back end, at our plant, and our budget is $1.2 billion.
Plus, you're just putting some of that back into the environment again.
Yes, because for us to remove everything, it would cost a fortune, and our budget will shoot up, and we would have to have carbon filters to filter everything out. Water. In my home, I have triple reverse osmosis in my home. I mean, I live in Chicago. The Chicago water is excellent. But my wife would not drink the Chicago water. And I told her, Sherry, it's good to drink. There's nothing wrong. So I went out and I used to buy water for her. So I said, I can't afford this. It's costing me a fortune. So I went out and I installed a triple reverse osmosis filter in my kitchen there, and that's where she drinks from now. And that has a filter in there. I don't know if you have one or not.
I
but
do. I have
because a lot of people like to use that because they don't like the chlorination in the water. See, but so this is what we're using. So there's an awful lot of products out there that I don't even know, and that it started. I think it started after maybe World War II, but it increased after World War II because they had all these chemicals that they wanted to win the war. So they did chemical warfare.
Right.
And DDT. They came back from World War II and they found out that it was hazardous to our health, so they banned DDT. But DDT doesn't go away. It's still in the ground, it's still here. And then the ingredients that made up DDT, then they wanted, they formed other type of products using those type of chemicals.
Well, now, I just would like to follow this flow from the large canals, from the large sewers, and then it goes into the Chicago River, and we've reversed the flow of the Chicago River, so now that flows into the Illinois River, is that correct?
Yes.
And then into the Mississippi River and down into the Gulf of Mexico.
Yes.
I've read a lot about dead zones in the Gulf of Mexico, about zones that are so highly polluted that fish can't live there, that no marine life can live there. How much of that comes from us in Chicago?
Well, they say because we have a population up here in this area, the city of Chicago has, 3 million? So we have an average about 5 million people here in Cook County. And every day they have to eliminate their waste, they wash their hands, it comes into our plant. When we treat it, as you mentioned, when we eliminate our waste, it's solid and liquid. Poop is a solid portion, the liquid is pee. We don't call it that in our industry because we're so intelligent, that we're so high class that we call it biosolids.
Biosolids.
After we treat it. And at the end of the day, we'll have 550 tons of biosolids.
At the end of the day?
Every day.
And where do those biosolids go?
Well, we'll give it to the farmers to grow their crops.
Now, will that include the heavy metals or the other things?
No, before we had a problem maybe in the 1940s, 1950s, where we had an awful lot of metals.
Right. And
that stigma stayed with us till now. People still think, but we have cleaned up our act, and it's very minimal, very hardly any metals or at all in our biosolids. Now, the difference between our human poop treatment and the difference with the animal manure, the difference is that we, at our wastewater plant, we treat our poop, our manure. Where the livestock, they don't treat it.
So you're talking about these big concentrated
Yes.
feeding operations downstate.
Right, that don't treat any of their manure,
Ah.
the livestock manure. So what are in their manure? Antibiotics, steroids, the food that they feed the livestock, they may have a lot of pesticides on the crops. And so when the livestock eliminate their waste and it rains and the runoff goes into the waterway, it's toxic, it's polluted compared to our human poop. We treat it. That's why, and also there's regulations where it's saying that sometimes we cannot have our treated poop biosolid is fertilizer. It's good fertilizer. If a farmer were to use human fertilizer after treatment, their yield per acre is much more than using the commercial fertilizer.
Now, can organic farmers use this? Is
No.
this only for conventional?
Yeah, and this is the difference that the organic farmers could use the manure, and it's not treated. You see where we have to because why? Because of the metals involved. They say metals. We here at the Water Reclamation District here in Cook County, we are the expert in treating human waste. We have 2,000 employees, 1,000 is labor, and 1,000 are professionals. We have a very good research staff that are doing a lot of research on keeping the water environment safe here in Cook County. And we started over 100 years ago here, and our first mission is to protect the water supply.
Now, does any of this water then go back to the city as clean water?
No.
Okay, this all goes down the...
It goes, as you mentioned, we'll discharge that into our channel.
Right.
We reversed the flow over 100 years ago, because over 100 years ago, you ever heard of Public Creek, the livestock? Well, all the pollution, all the livestock, all the waste used to go into the Chicago River, used to flow into Lake Michigan. The intake cribs were near the shore, and that's the intake for the drinking water. Well, if the intake were near the shore, all that waste came back, and the people were drinking their waste, and that's why they got sick, and they were concerned that it could contaminate the people here in the city of Chicago.
But sometimes they have to reverse the flow after the storm.
Yeah. And they reverse the flow is that because we built the city of Chicago and all the other communities on marshland. I mean, we eliminated a lot of wetlands. And what did we do? We raised some of the streets, level up, maybe 8 feet, 9 feet, and it used to be all marshland. We destroyed a lot of wetlands, and we need wetlands to purify the water, because when polluted water comes through wetlands, it removes the pollution, the polluted water. So wetlands is very important, and here in Cook County we have very small amount of wetlands. So now all of our roads are concrete or asphalt. We got sidewalks, we got parking lots, so when it rains, the ground is not being absorbed by the water because it's covered by hard surface.
So, but you're not playing a role then in the quality of the water that we get from the lake that's treated. That's in a different department.
Right. We protect the water supply, Lake Michigan. We have another department. We have officers that go out and make sure that none of the manufacturers or industry is discharging their waste into our system.
Is that part of the mission of your reclamation board also?
And why is water so important? Our body is 67%
We're made out
water.
of water.
We're made out an elephant, a chicken.
Right.
The good Lord made, we're creatures, we're all creatures. And we are, a person could live without food for about a month. But try living without water. Maybe it'll last 3 days, 4 days.
But if I'm excreting all these toxic chemicals,
Yes.
or they're coming out of my dishwasher or my laundry machine or my sink or my toilet, but that suggests that water coming in might have some of these toxic chemicals too, and I may be ingesting some of them.
Well, the water that we take in is the water filtration plant
Right.
will purify the water.
Okay.
And that's why they'll put, and there's a big discussion on this also, a small amount of chlorinated water. And there's a big discussion, and I heard a professor at Loyola University discussing the danger of drinking chlorinated water, purified water.
Well, chlorine addresses addresses microorganisms, but I'm thinking more in terms of other endocrine disruptors and heavy metals and things like that.
Yeah, no,
is that an issue here in Chicago?
Yeah, no, I think they do a pretty good job. But as I mentioned, there's a discussion.
Sure.
of the a lot of people say you should not drink chlorinated water, and if they object to drinking that, then pick up a reverse osmosis filter there.
Well, I know some people have even suggested that we are reaching the point in some areas of the country where potable water, for drinkable water, for use other than drinking, might be a luxury that we can't afford. Have we reached that point in Chicago, or are we near that point?
Well, I don't think we're near that point yet, because we got Lake Michigan. And the problem that I see is that we have subsidy on ethanol here in the state, and for low consumption of fuel, the price of fuel. But I don't think that will solve the problem of alternate fuel, because it takes 5 gallons of water to make 1 gallon of ethanol. We're depleting our groundwater because of ethanol. We have to find, I think, a different alternate source of fuel.
Does Chicago get any water from a groundwater source?
No,
all from the lake.
Most from the lake, and the Great Lakes. Of all the water in the world, 1% is fresh water for drinking purpose, surface water. 1%, and in the Great Lakes, 20% of that 1% is right here. Yeah. And in the United States, about 90% of all the fresh water, surface water in the United States is right here in the Great Lakes. If we continue the way we are and not conserving water, we're reading today how California is suffering from water, how Texas, Arizona, they all need water. And I remember not this last presidential election, but maybe about 8 years ago, that they were discussing, someone came up with an idea of running a pipeline from the Great Lakes down to Arizona.
Yes, I've heard some proposals where other communities want to take some of our lake water. What is the status of that?
Well, I don't think it'll ever happen, but I would say that people will be selling their homes if they don't have water and move up around the Great Lakes. That's if we don't come to a decision how to conserve our water. And another big problem we have is here in the state of Illinois, we have this labeling, GMO labeling, which is very important. And that's why I'm glad to see that you're on board and you're the legislative director. Explain to me about labeling and how the effect here in Illinois.
Oh, very much so. We're very concerned about genetically modified crops that, for one thing, and this maybe fits into what we've been talking about here, Frank, and that is that we now have corn and soybeans that have been manufactured so that they can, genetically engineered, so that these seeds and the seedlings and the plants from them will withstand applications of a very strong herbicide, weed killer called Roundup, and the technical name for Roundup is glyphosate. And so instead of just glyphosate being used on the weeds, now it's being used on entire fields in Illinois and Iowa and many places that drain into our river basin. And it gets in the air, it gets in the water, it gets in the water table. The Geologic Survey has found it in the Chicago area. And this is a very toxic chemical. There's been quite a bit written on its effects as a reproductive disruptor, as a general toxin. And so we're very concerned about that, and we would like people to be able to know which foods they are buying have been genetically engineered so they can make a decision, hey, this is something I want to buy, or this is not something I want to buy. There aren't that many foods that are genetically engineered in terms of types of foods, but because corn and soybeans are the most heavily engineered ones, corn and soybeans are ubiquitous. They are found throughout processed foods. So if you are drinking soda pop, you're getting a lot of high fructose corn syrup. That's genetically engineered
Yes.
corn. The many other products that you buy, the pancake mixes, the cakes, the cookies, the baked goods, the chips, the sweets, these all have, unless they're organic, they all have corn, and many have soy in them. And so this is what we're concerned. We would like people at least to be able to know if they are getting these foods, because we are concerned about the health effects. They've shown themselves to be allergens, to have other problems that have been associated with them in experiments on rats, have shown damage to every organ system of the body. And of course, these are the same kinds of rats that we use to test the pharmaceuticals that we take for safety. So we take these animal studies very seriously. So right now there's a bill in the Illinois General Assembly in our state legislature to label GMOs. There's some interest in this at the federal level. And so yes, we hope that people will let their representatives know that they would like to see GMOs labeled.
And that's why I'm running for re-election, because I'm concerned about the health and welfare of the residents of Cook County and even throughout the state. Because if we don't solve this problem, our kids are going to be born with more adult diseases. And endocrine disruptors is a big concern of mine, because endocrine disruptors is that these are synthetic hormones that when a baby is born, their receptacles opens up and you get the synthetic hormones go in their receptacles, and that will disrupt their whole body.
Well, isn't that true of triclosan that you
Yes.
were talking about, and some of the other chemicals in our personal care products?
Yes.
So that when we use some of these products on our skin, this is absorbed into our skin. It gets into our system, these chemicals. That's why it's so important to read labels.
Yeah. And fire retardant, our firemen, when they have
Yeah.
a fire, they're more. Thank you very much, Joan. It's been a nice discussion.
Thank you.